Hi, and welcome to another edition of Life Lessons with Scott and Friends. And again, tonight I'm pleased to be joined by Ryan Ricards and Clayton Lindsay. They joined me a couple weeks ago, and we discussed, first impressions and falling in love with our significant others and who would become our wives. And so tonight, just want to try to continue that conversation. And so, gentlemen, as we get started, the the question I have is just how was it those first couple of years? How what were those first couple of years like for you guys and getting into the whole marriage routine? And so, whatever you're willing to share, I'll kind of leave it open ended and just leave it to you guys to talk about the first couple of years of married life.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm happy to tell my story. It's the first couple of years of our marriage. I'd say the honeymoon probably ended fairly quickly for Ginger and I, which turned out to be a great thing at the end of the day. But I think as we left off, if any of your listeners listened to the last episode, Ginger and I met while we were at Bell South. We both when we got married, we were already climbing the corporate ladder. I had gotten promotion in a pretty prestigious position at Bell South, and she was an executive assistant for a vice president. So she as well was up there. And our jobs kind of became our focus. And I lay that groundwork, and I want to give you a little background even before I go into that. Before we got married, I had bought a house in Snellville and had a couple roommates. Two were college friends of mine. One was actually a high school friend of mine. They were renting a room for me. And when we got married, we actually made the decision together that we weren't going to kick them out immediately, that it was going to save us a lot of money by having them renting rooms from us, and we were going to make it work. And she liked them all. She was friends with them. And back to our work was kind of engrossing us. We were at a very young age already focusing way too much on our own careers and not enough on each other. And what ended up happening was almost became like a fraternity house. And that's how Ginger later on down the road explained it to me, that I never really understood why we were having some difficulties between Ginger and I. Obviously, it wasn't a lack of love. It wasn't lack of respect. I was young, she was young, making decisions that I was still like I was in college, like things weren't as important as they should be. The maturity level, I mean, I knew I was a mature man, or a mature person at the time, but I wasn't mature enough to have a relationship with a woman that I needed to focus on her instead of things that didn't matter as much. So we actually grew apart pretty early on in our relationship, where, again, back to the fraternity house thing, it was me and the guys were doing this, and we'd hang out and we would include her, but she's a girl in a house with three guys. It was a recipe for disaster. And it finally came to a head. And that's when she, again, kind of explained to me why she was upset and what the issues were. And it was kind of like it just resonated with me so quickly that I had to fix it. So obviously the first issue was get rid of the guys in the house. And we had some other problems that I don't necessarily know if I want to discuss, but we had some other issues that we resolved. We prayed about it together. We were going to Sugar Hill Church at the time. We just started there. And it was something that we had to figure out together with God's help to really save the marriage pretty early on. And obviously it worked. We've, almost like it's like when we renewed our vows, but it's almost like we renewed our vows. It was basically, okay, we're going to commit ourselves to each other because we know we're supposed to be together. We just made some really dumb mistakes that we need to address and fix, where we're focusing in on each other. So basically, long story short, we got ourselves out of the situation. I removed myself from the roommates. We actually sold the house so that we could get that out of our history and then moved to Swanee. So we were actually at that time commuting all the way from Snellville to Sugar Hill. My brother had gone there. That's why we went there. So we moved up to that area so we could become more involved. And it wasn't long after that that we were pregnant. So it all fixed itself really quickly, or we fixed it very quickly, but it could have gone another way, which I'm certainly glad it didn't. So that's kind of I mean, honestly, we can talk about kids as we get into other things, but that's kind of how we started out over our first couple of years of marriage. The honeymoon, like I said, ended fairly fast, and then we had to fix it and have our new honeymoon, a new honeymoon.
That's
So with
awesome.
that, I'll leave it to Ryan to give his story.
Yeah. Uh, Thanks, Scott, again for having us back on here. It's interesting. So we kind of had almost a flip flop approach to that. So appreciate you sharing that, Clayton. We, gosh, when we got married back in 2003. So 18 years this year. And when over the course of the engagement, we were engaged. I don't know. We'll call it a year and a half, 2 years. Can't remember exactly. That, but I had started my first job out of college. Kind of like I was on the entry level side, so I was I was working, very kind of a low end job, and 6 months to the day that I started, I walked into work and these people were coming around, the cubicles, and tapped me on the shoulder and said, whatever, location A or something, and I'm like, all right, whatever this is. And then all of a sudden over the intercom, they said, okay, those of you that have location A, go meet in the cafeteria. Those of you that have location B, go meet in this area. And those that have location C, go meet here. And, here I am, 19, 20, however old I was at the time. Like, what's this mean? So go into a conference room and, here comes these guys in suits and they say, hey, for those of you that are in here, thank you for your efforts. And, the company's relocating to Colorado and your services are no longer needed. And I was like, okay, so I'm engaged. We're about to get married. Don't have a job. Where are we going to live? How are we going to pay for all this? So my mind's going crazy at the time. So fast forward, ended up finding a temp job, and ended up finding another job that we did. So we were able to kind of keep that going. And we got married. We very I'll call it casual, I guess you could say, just a little small house. We were living in Spartanburg, Bowling Springs at the time, South Carolina. Little starter house, perfect for us. And we people talk about like the honeymoon phase or the honeymoon experience and all the I think Hollywood shows this glamour of everything everything you're doing together, and you're just all smiles and all that. I mean, we loved each other then, we love each other now, but like we never really had that, like, I'll call it, the honeymoon experience. We always enjoyed being with each other and doing things together, and that really never changed, and still hasn't changed. So no real, didn't really have any, experiences per se with that. Ours kind of all tied back to jobs, and then Clayton alluded to it just a minute ago. If we get longer into kids, there's a lot of stories around how kids shaped our marriage. But after about a year and a half, I guess, of being married, I was actually offered a job to move here to Georgia, and at that time, Lori was doing very well in her job and moving up. She had done some internships with some companies through college, and was actually doing quite well for herself. So we had to have that first kind of conversation of do we stay here, do we stay local? Her family was there 10, 15 minutes away. Mine were about 2 hours away, but it was close enough. And Lori's the only child, so like her family was very close. So we had to have the conversation of, do we stay here and I continue to look for something, or do we jump on this opportunity to relocate to Georgia and kind of start our life together, outside of our family. So so here we are. We did that. That was I mean, it was difficult. We didn't have family. It's not like we moved across country, but we did have we didn't have mom next door, or whatnot. So those first couple years, the first year or so of being here, It was all about forming the relationships that, which, two of you guys are some of the first ones that we made, when we did that. So we found a church, got plugged in with Sugar Hill, and how that came to be is a story for another day too. But that was an interesting experience of how we came to Sugar Hill. But we got plugged in with small groups, found other like-minded individuals that were, we'll call it newlyweds. Again, we were each a couple years married, and it just we really found out early on that marriage in our life was going to be a lot about compromise and a lot of communication. We've had some experiences. I had that situation with the job. I've actually gone through that a few times where either a company's relocated, my position's been eliminated. Same with Lori when we were actually pregnant with our second child. Her position was eliminated during that time. So we've gone through the roller coasters from the very beginning of our marriage through current. And like I said, really just a lot of it's just been we've bounced off of each other, not once that I can recall. I'm sure there probably has been a time, but not once I can recall quickly has it been just a one-sided decision. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I don't care about your input. We've very much kind of just talked it out. And even the move here, I was really shocked. I thought that was going to be, I mean, honestly, just met with resistance. Again, Lori, being an only child, very tight with her mom. When that opportunity came, I almost immediately declined it because I was like, there's no way we're gonna leave from here. And but she saw something that was there, and since being here, it's been one of the best decisions that we've made. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's specifics of those first couple of years. It's for us, we didn't live together, but before marriage or anything, we dated a lot all through college and everything. But so it was just getting to know each other. What are the ins and outs? What are the quirks? What are the things that I'm going to do? They're going to tick her off. I mean, I was messy then. I'm messy now. So just learning to live with each other's quirks, but also knowing that you're in a committed relationship. You've made that commitment to be together. And so yeah, those first few years, it's okay, I'd leave my shoes and my whatever in the middle of the floor. Hey, move that. It's kind of how to work together on some of those things. But yeah, just all about the communication.
So it's so the question I want to ask you guys is, I think guys and I'll say it for myself, I was so naive going into marriage. My idea of what I thought marriage was going to be versus what it actually ended up being was so different. So I'd be curious to know, from your perspective, what were some misconceptions or thoughts that you had going into the marriage that you realize, wow, this is nothing like what I pictured. If you have any of those things that you would share with a young man who maybe is looking to possibly getting married, what were some of those misconceptions that you might have had that, and what was the resolution for you as far as figuring that out? Because I know as men, the typical thing is, I can figure this out, I can get through this. So I know what my experience was like. I'd be curious to know what y'all's response to that would be.
That's a hard one because I'm not a goal. Kind of some of that goes back to like being a goal oriented person, which I think I alluded to last time. I'm not. So I didn't have a lot of that I can think of. Hey, this is what marriage is going to be. I can tell you what it's not. It's not what media portrays. It's not what movies portray. Kind of as Ryan said a minute ago, it's not, there's not doves in your house every day flying up as soon as your wife wakes up. That's not what it is. You are living with another person that some people are seeing and yin and yang, excuse me. Some people are yang and yang. I mean, every marriage is different at the same time. As before you asked the question, one thing I was thinking about, it's a little off what you asked, but I think it's important to state it is, a lot of people will say, well, you should spend 5 years together before you have kids. You should go on trips. You should just, be together. Yeah, that works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So what I would say is you don't want to go into a marriage thinking, okay, I'm going to have a rigid, okay, 1 year is going to be this, 2 years is going to be this, and 3 years, and then 5th year, we're going to have kids. You've got to, at some point, let things, for one, God's plan is going to come out, and he's going to make it how it's going to be regardless. And you don't want to fight that plan. But like, for instance, my niece and her husband, they got married at an early age. They were, I think, 19 and 20. And over the last year, they're about 2 to 3 years in a marriage. They spent like 6 months traveling the United States. That couldn't happen with Ginger and I. That's just not our personality. And some people can do that, and they can, and that really strengthens their marriage. But it's all personality based. So you can't. There's no right or wrong answer here. And it comes to anything I think we're going to talk about, and I'm probably going to say it over and over again as we have different themes that we discuss. There is no right or wrong answer. It really is based on how your personality is, your wife's personality is, and how those gel. And Ryan hit that nail on the head. It's communication. If you can't talk to each other, you're going to have problems. And I'm just like you said, as males, we have hard times talking and letting our emotions out. And that's why I enjoy this series. The first series, I just like, wow, I'd never really thought about some of these things, because that's just not the way my brain works. Until I talk about it, I don't think about it. And so this really kind of helps me even to look back at our marriage. And I had Ginger listen to our last program, and we had a great time talking about it and thinking about how all that went and reminiscing. But anyway, I got off topic. My biggest piece of advice is you just don't go into it with a preconceived notion, because if you are, you're going to get disappointed, because it is not going to be what you expect. Well, I guess it could be, but generally speaking, I don't think it's going to be what you expect.
Yeah.
It's not like having a roommate in college. It's not the way it's not the way this works.
Right.
It's kind of glad that it's not like your roommate in college, because some of those experiences would be quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I think the biggest thing, Scott, I think you hit it kind of, or one of you guys talked about the naivety, and I did go into the first year or so, or even leading up to it, with thinking, oh wow, I'm going to have a wife, I'm going to be married, everywhere we go, we're going to be arm in arm, and it's just going to be this euphoric experience everywhere we go. And I think what I learned very quickly, and I'm continuing to learn over the years, is the whole concept, about not comparing yourself, your life, anything about you and your situation to someone else. Because when you start doing that, you're setting yourself up for failure off the bat. So conversely, if anyone's out there listening that's about to get married, or going into it, conversely, do find folks who have good relationships and positive experiences in marriage that you can at least lean on and ask questions, but don't set yourself to a point to where you want to emulate that, because Clayton, you nailed it. Your personalities are different, lifestyles are different, everything's different. So you definitely don't want to copy that other relationship. But for me, my parents are going on, oh my goodness, right, 44. I think they hit their 44th wedding anniversary this year. So growing up, I saw a husband and wife. They had a marriage. We were the kids. They did kid stuff. So it was like I kind of saw that throughout, and there were certain aspects of their marriage that I wanted to carry over into mine. There were other aspects that I didn't. But ultimately, yeah, it's Clayton, you said it very well, that your personalities are different. We didn't go into it with the the 2-year plan, or, we're going to be married for 2 years before we have kids. And once we have kids, we want to have, a boy and a girl and a dog, or whatever the whole 2.3 or whatever the numbers are that lead up to that. I could say, if you asked me this, 10, 12, 15 years ago, I probably would have had a different answer. I probably would have said, oh yeah, when we get married, we're going to be married for, a couple of years, and we're going to travel and we're going to do all these things, because again, not knowing it. But now, after going through that, live your life and enjoy it with who you're with. Know that, it's that whole thing about, it's being, it's a, whatever, a journey or not a race, or whatever that whole thing is. Like, there's a lot of milestones along the way. So, learn from each other. Know that it's not going to be perfect. Know that, it's not a Hollywood Studios thing. You're not going to wake up every morning, with, like you said, Clayton, doves aren't going to be flying in your bedroom, and, the little, stars aren't going to be going off everywhere. And that's not reality. Not to say that the love's not going to be there, but yeah, that Hollywood jazz of all that stuff, it's just, that's and that hurts a lot of things. So yeah, just, enjoy the moment. I would, like I said, suggest that anyone that's going into this, look for couples, surround yourselves and position yourself with people that, that have good relationships that you can lean on, you can ask questions. You can do that. But yeah, don't, I guess also, don't be ashamed or embarrassed, or if you feel like something's not going right, talk it over with your spouse. I mean, that's all goes back to the communication. So just yeah, that's really all I can throw out there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing. It's for Lisa and I, it was we 22 and 19, and really no clue. We got married November of 88. Kimberly was born in November of 89. Andrea was born in November of 90. Somehow we lost 18 months before we had Kyle, and 13 months later we had Ryan. So we were very much just into each other, and first 3-4 years was oblivious to anything other than we were obviously having a lot of sex, and ended up with 4 kids in 5.5 years. So we didn't have the opportunity to really get into discovering and learning all there was to know about each other, and growing together. Now, we led to that over the years. And so the point that I forget which one made is, there's not a cookie cutter approach to marriage that's going to work. What works for one, you're not guaranteed to work for someone else. Lisa and I, we didn't plan the way our marriage unfolded. And Clayton, I think you alluded to God's plan. I'm so thankful He's in control and not I, because our marriage would have failed a long time, right at the start. But God strengthened us and grew us together. We did it as we were raising our kids, and just so thankful that it turned out the way it has. And so any final thoughts before we kind of wrap up this session? And then I want you guys to stick around. I'd like to do a part 2 of this with you guys for our audience. Any other thoughts?
The only thing I would tell you is, 1, keep an open mind. 2, drop your selfish nature. You cannot be selfish in a marriage. A marriage will fail immediately if selfishness comes out. And then back to what we said, returning topic is communication. Yep. If you go into a marriage with those 3 things, open mind, lose the selfishness, and know how to communicate, your marriage will be extremely successful.
Good word. Ryan, anything else?
I mean, Clayton nailed it. Like I said, it's been a wonderful ride for us. I'm looking forward to the next, 30, 40, 50, however long, God has us on, on this earth, to do it. But yeah, don't, I'm glad your second point there, Clayton, the selfishness, that, man, that's spot on. If you make that commitment, two is becoming one. And at that point, it's not to say that you can't have your own life and do things that still, are important to you, but ultimately, yeah, it's about that unity and that combined relationship. So absolutely good stuff.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you guys, and we'll get right into session 2 here, but take a little break for a moment, and then we'll be right back. But to our audience, thank you guys for joining. Please share, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you might be listening to this. I would love to hear your comments and know if this resonates with anyone. And if there's any particular topic you'd like to hear, Clayton and Ryan have both agreed to, to come back and join me for other topics. So look forward to that. And for that, we'll sign off for now. But again, thank you guys for watching and appreciate your time. Take care. Peace.